Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. My name is Matthew. Again, we are going to take a look at the best Bitcoin valuation metric you've never heard of, the price to sales ratio. We're going to continue today by drawing a regression trend line on the PSR, as well as percentile bands. So here we go. This is now the second day, the second video covering this ratio. And I want to remind you, dear viewer, dear listener, that if you want to find out more exactly how this ratio is calculated, that is the market cap divided by the trailing 12-month Bitcoin miner network revenue, the entire revenue, the scarce blocks, the transaction fees that they work toward collecting every 10 minutes. That information is going to be in the prior video. So for now, all I'm going to do on the left axis is show the price. And this helps because we can see now exactly when the price is facing a boom period and a subsequent bust. We can see what the PSR does and what it signals, what it shows us, if perhaps it is coming to a top. I hasten to say, as always, this is not financial advice, never financial advice. Markets don't work scientifically. The pendulum always swings. It never stops right at the bottom or at the top. So it's always something that you need to keep in mind. But these ratios certainly do help us understand the trend of the market a little bit more. So on the left axis, we have the Bitcoin price in log scale, which helps us go all the way back to Bitcoin Pizza Day when the price was under $1, under a penny even. And then it takes us all the way out here to actually yesterday's pricing data. As of this recording, $22,250. And also, as of this recording today, the Bitcoin price has dropped below $20,000. Of course, that is not reflected here, so keep that in mind. But again, I'm more about the long-term signal here, less about the daily noise, certainly not about the hourly noise or trading those types of candles. More power to you if you want to try that, caveat emptor. This is just looking at the relative value of the Bitcoin network versus the dollar at any point in time during its prior 14-year history, 13 or so year history of pricing data. So what I want to try to do in this video now, as opposed to yesterday, is let's try to get a better sense of the trend of the PSR itself, of the ratio itself. We see that we've had higher highs here from every boom in 2011 to 2013, the double boom, 2017, when Bitcoin went up to $20,000. And then the PSR, of course, tops out at 170x, as we talked about yesterday, only signaling the first top. Because, of course, the network revenue smooths out, it rises, it catches this prior pricing data. So by the end of 2021, when Bitcoin also went to $60,000 per coin, the PSR was not signaling that this was another boom like it was in the start of 2021, which is interesting. Nonetheless, you see that we have higher highs and we also have higher lows. We have higher lows. Remember here, zoom in, the end of 2011, we get a PSR that basically hits 1. It hits 1 here at the end of 2011, November 18th, 2011. This was after the price has been $30, the Mt. Gox hacking, the empty Gox hacking in the first one in June 2011. The price trended down to a couple bucks per Bitcoin. So at this point, the entire Bitcoin network value, the market cap, was equal to the entire trailing 12-month revenue that miners made network-wide at the end of 2011, a 1x PSR. So it's never been that low. And if you understand just basic finance, if you can make an investment where you make basically 100% of your capital value in gross revenues in 1 year, it's probably a pretty good investment. Again, though, this, I hasten to say, remember, PSR is a gross figure. It doesn't factor in expenses at all. So it's a gross figure. It's just gross. It's not a net figure like PE, which is a net figure. And one more thing, of course, to say about PE there is, which I don't think I said this yesterday, PE, you can, that's the flagship stock financial metric, the price to earnings ratio, that you can use across any stock and any industry. PSR doesn't work like that. With PSR, you can't compare the PSR ratio from the tech industry to the oil industry to the gold industry to the Bitcoin industry, either on a company level or an industry-wide level, which this is for Bitcoin. You just can't compare them across industries because it's gross of expenses. It's before expenses. So every industry in the world has their own economics. They have their own net margins versus the gross revenue, and they just work differently. Of course, they have different capital costs as well, which also are a factor of expenses with depreciation and amortization. So it's just completely different. Net ratios like PE, you can compare across industries. You can't do that with PSR. You simply can't. And that should be self-evident here. You might, if you know anything about PSRs, you might know that, say, Apple and Tesla, I actually don't know their PSRs as of this recording, but I'm sure that they are under 10. They might even be under 5x PSR. Bitcoin has hit 170x PSR in 2021. And as of the moment, it is a little over 50. So on that note, maybe one more benchmark number to throw at you across a relatively related industry, but certainly a different industry as well, is the gold industry. As I've said before, 1.8% monetary inflation per year is roughly the gold mining monetary percentage rate. Roughly, based on the prior year's stock, gold miners produce worldwide about 1.8% more ounces per year. And this has been a trend that's been the same for about the last 200 years, 1.8%. But if you put that in dollar terms, again, this is rough. We will compare this on a more precise chart in the future for sure, the Bitcoin and the gold PSRs. 1.8% new gold ounces coming out of the ground, that's about $200 billion. Roughly, the gold industry is $10 trillion. How many times does 200 billion go into 10 trillion? 50. So the gold industry, roughly over recent years, has a 50x PSR. Gold miners, they're fighting for revenues that are 50x smaller than the total gold market cap. Bitcoin's different. It's been as low as 1, and it's rising to where it's been as high as 170. And now it actually is close to that 50 number. So one other way we can look at to try to compare, maybe understand across relatively similar industries, right? Gold versus Bitcoin. Let's look at the all-time average of this PSR. I'm going to put that right now. It's going to be a dotted line on the right-hand side. There's the all-time average PSR. And what is it? 50.9x. Quite close, actually, to the rough PSR of the gold industry. Interesting. Yet, if we look at this, let's just table gold now for now. I'm not going to make any more points about gold. Let's just look at Bitcoin itself, the Bitcoin PSR itself. If we look at the all-time average of this PSR, again, the dotted black line, you can see that the all-time average doesn't really mean anything here in 2011, 2012. When we're at 1x PSR, 2x, 3x PSR, price to sales ratio, that is the Bitcoin market cap divided by trailing 12-month miner revenue, block reward plus fees, you're not even close to 50x PSR. You're at 1, 2, 3x. You see the PSR versus PSR all-time average. We don't even need to zoom in. You can just see it there on the tooltip. The same thing with the crypto winter. And yes, it does cross 50x a couple times. It doesn't here in 2011 during that first boom, the first and subsequent MT Gox hacking. But it does cross here, I guess, 4 times, right? In 2013, once on the way up, once on the way down during the 2 booms that we had in 2013. It does cross 50x. And a few more times here in 2017, 2019 a little bit. And then, of course, now we can see that it's crossing the all-time average much more. So that's interesting. That shows us that at least from the last few years, the all-time average is maybe more of a meaningful figure. But as you know, I like to draw trend lines, and do please see my prior videos analyzing the linear, logarithmic, exponential, and power regression trend lines over the gold price, over the Bitcoin price, over the Bitcoin market cap. We've analyzed the trends every which way, and we can do the same here for the Bitcoin PSR. So I'm actually going to take off the price even. We're not even looking at price now, we're just looking at PSR. Let's draw a regression trend line, the best fitting regression trend line over the Bitcoin PSR. This is on the right axis. Let's do that right now. It's going to be a Bitcoin orange solid line. All right, so this is more helpful now. You see there R squared of 60%. What does that mean again? Very, very simply, you have all the pieces of data you need to understand R squared. It's misunderstood all the time. All that an R squared of 60% means is that the solid black line, the PSR, these peaks and troughs of PSR over the 14 years of Bitcoin's history, 13 years of Bitcoin's pricing history, the solid black line, it moves up or down, it moves around the Bitcoin orange line 60% better, or with 60% less variance than the PSR moves around its mean, its average. And you can see, indeed, it does. The average here, the dotted line, means nothing here. As I've said, almost nothing in the early years. It barely touches it. Whereas if you look at that orange line, it looks much nicer, right? It hugs the PSR much better. So this is where not only can you not really compare PSRs across industries, maybe we can look at it between Bitcoin and gold, as we will. But since Bitcoin is so nascent, we don't even know what its PSR should be per market trends. We know that we see higher highs and higher lows. We know that it's probably never going back to 1x. Again, never say never. This is never financial advice. Do what you need to do. Trade, hodl, sell, do what you need to do with Bitcoin. Not financial advice, but you see that as far as understanding the way that this PSR might signal tops or bottoms in the dollar-based exchange market, the gold line is much better. It's certainly much better than the all-time average, and it shows us that the trend is rising for the PSR. So we'll have to see. No one knows what the all-time average PSR of Bitcoin will be in the next 20 years. No one's even calculating this but me at the moment. See my last video about how I started doing the PSR calculation on January 9th, 2017 with the launch of my first website. Nonetheless, stick with me. We'll keep calculating this. Surely the PSR is rising here as the power regression trend line goes. And the 60% R squared, it's not perfect. It's certainly not as good as the 95%, 96% R squareds for the price and the market cap, respectively, as far as the power regression goes. But it's not bad either, and it's certainly better than the all-time average. So let's go ahead and take the all-time average off. We're not going to need that anymore. This is what we need to look at as far as understanding where we are, where we've been, where we could go as far as the PSR multiple is concerned. So now that we have this regression trend line, we can draw these percentile bands. Again, I've talked about this in prior videos as well. Let's go 1 sigma down, 1 sigma up. What does it mean? It means that any data, as far as the black line is concerned, the PSR, any data that is inside these two blue dotted lines is a 1 sigma event. It's within a 1 sigma event. It will happen 2/3 of the time. 2/3 of the time, you will see the black PSR data inside of the blue bands. Anytime you're outside of those blue bands, that's outside of a 1 sigma event. All right, so it's more rare. And we can do 2 sigma down and 2 sigma up. There we go. By the way, this is why finance is not a bell curve. These are percentiles, which represent standard deviations. What's 2 sigma? Let's just explain that very quickly. Again, anytime you see the PSR within the red bands, it's happening 95% of the time. Anytime it's outside of the red bands, the dotted red lines, it's outside of a 2 sigma event, i.e. it only happens 5% of the time. Very, very rare. So these percentile bands really, really help us. And also, remember, this is not log scale yet. see how much higher the red band is, the 2 sigma up over the 1 sigma up versus the 2 sigma down versus the 1 sigma down? They're very close, obviously, on the bottom. That means the data is skewed left, or it's skewed to the downside. So finance, this happens in all of finance, by the way. It's not a bell curve. It's not a bell curve. We have these booms and we have busts. Why they happen is the topic of another video. But as far as the Bitcoin market cap and price is concerned, it's no different. All right, so it's more rare air up here, which is why the 2 sigma up percentile band needs to be so much higher. It needs to be so much higher because it's more rare air up here, i.e. the data is skewed downward. It's skewed to the 2 sigma down and the 1 sigma down percentile bands. Most of the time it's around those lower level bands. So this is now giving us a better picture about why we get these higher highs, where we might go in the future. I'm not going to predict out in the future how these percentiles look, but you can just generally see what's happening, and keep an eye on the power regression as well, the orange solid line. Where are we now? Well, the PSR is right on trend. It's a little bit above. Let's zoom in. So this is just, again, from September 2022, so it looks quite different. We are right about on trend. The PSR itself is 50.9, which is also, interestingly, very close to the rough gold PSR. Also close to the average PSR. Let's put that on very quickly. Where's the average? There it is. Very, very close to the average. And it's slightly below the power regression PSR, the trend PSR, which is about 54x at the moment. So let's put the price back now on the left axis, log scale. Let's just look again at how the PSR has signaled some tops and some bottoms and what it might mean for the future. Again, we have very, very strong indications here of overextension, the market getting over its skis, the market cap of Bitcoin being valued well in excess of trailing 12-month network-wide miner revenue. Again, here you're talking trillions of dollars of market cap versus 15, 16, 17 billion dollars worth of revenue. It's a huge difference. Huge difference. But also, this ratio is helpful because, again, as I mentioned yesterday, it catches the first top very clearly. That was a top, that was a boom. But then when the second top comes along, we have more revenue being valued higher. So it's not as extreme. But also, it doesn't really say, you know, if you follow this long enough and you look at the trend, look at the way that the black line is moving here, it's moving down. Yes, it moves back up in late 2021. It certainly does, as the Bitcoin price again returns to $60,000 per Bitcoin. But if you keep following this long enough, we were already seeing here at October 2021, the PSR is moving down. I mean, you're still at $50,000 Bitcoin, but the PSR is moving down. It's now moved below the all-time trend, you know, well before any of the blowups that happened here in June. You know, the Celsius, the Terra, all the scams that occurred in the crypto market, and then of course culminating with the FTX debacle in November 2022. Well before that, interestingly, if you kept your eye on it, the PSR was dipping below trend. It was dipping below trend. So that's as well an interesting directional indicator about where the Bitcoin price was going. And then, of course, where are we in the very recent history? Well, the price went as low as, 15, 16,000 here in November, December, January 2022 and 2023. The PSR has hit that 1 sigma down level. It has not actually even come close to a 2 sigma down level. But 1 sigma down started to look like support, and now it's trending up again. I know that during the recording of this video, the price has dipped again. We'll just have to see it. I'll keep tracking this for you. But the PSR is trending back up, denoted by that little industry icon there. It's trending back up to about trend right now. So if we zoom out again, let's just go bird's eye here, top level. And actually, let's put the right axis now on log scale. We can see it a little bit better. Let's take off all-time average. Still too much data going on there. Let's even take off the 1 sigma down and 1 sigma up for now. Now you can start to see what's happening. When you do these trend lines, they're very, very helpful. You can start to see that when the PSR is moving in a downward direction, when it's moving under trend, price is generally going down. When it starts to move above trend and gets close to that 2 sigma up and pierces it, goes above it, we're certainly in a boom condition. And it went 2 sigma up here in 2017 as well, and in 2021. Only during the first boom, the early boom of 2021. But it was already warning, it was already falling during that second boom. So this is the interesting nature of making that link, making that bridge between the market cap and then actually the scarce resources that miners, servicers, block producers of the Bitcoin network are fighting for every day, which topped out at about $15 billion worth of Bitcoin block reward plus trailing 12-month transaction fees at the mid part of 2021 to now it's under 10 billion. So maybe according to this ratio, we've bottomed. We have gotten to a 1 sigma down level, not even close to a 2 sigma, but 2 sigma down now. You can take off the upside. We're focusing on the downside now. Again, that was really, really rare. I mean, 1x the market cap being worth the entire revenue that miners were making over the trailing 12-month period ending November 22nd, 2011. It's very likely we'll never hit that number again. I can't know the future, but that's just extreme undervaluation based on any metric when your market cap is trading at 1 times revenues. Here, in the depths of the crypto winter, January 2015, we pierced it again below the 2 sigma down. It was 3.2x. The 2 sigma down PSR was 4.8x, so we were below that. Rare event to the downside. And again, we had it during this sort of puking, this final exhaustion, capitulation after the ICO, 1 full year after the Bitcoin top in 2017. ICO projects, scam projects not delivering, people realizing they just lost all their money to worthless tokens. The Bitcoin price here was $6,000 plus at the start of November 2018. I know it's blocked by the tooltip a little bit, but you see it just crashing here to end of November, December, we get to $3,000 Bitcoin. Again, a 2 sigma to the downside event. Very, very rare air for the PSR at this point, where it goes to 9x. And we haven't actually hit 2 sigma down again. Even this big COVID scare where the Bitcoin price is about $5,000. It was, $9,000, $10,000 the start of 2020. The COVID scare fully took off worldwide. Bitcoin crashed. I think even intraday it went below 5,000, close to 3,000. I don't seem to catch that, but again, this is daily. On the PSR, remember, don't look at price here as far as the bands. You're looking at the black line, what bands it's touching. So it didn't go 2 sigma down, and we haven't gone 2 sigma down again. So from that side, it's interesting. From that side, directionally, we could be faked out for sure. Like here, it went down, right? Went down. The PSR was going down, then went up a little bit again here in 2014, but then went down again to where this bottom happened in January of 2015. You have to see. But this is more signal than noise, right? This is the trend. This is what's happening. Higher highs, higher lows with the PSR. We are conveniently, interestingly, as of the recording of this video, we just actually passed the all-time average PSR, that 50x, 50.9x. Both on a real basis. The PSR itself is 54. Now it's just at it, actually. Zoom in even more. It's just at the all-time average, 50.9. But it was just above it a few days ago. And we are just above the orange trend line of the PSR growing with higher highs and higher lows over the last 13 plus years of Bitcoin pricing data. So let's take the average off. Let's put back the 1 sigma up, 2 sigma up. Let's put the price back. This is what I think is more helpful, to realize that the pendulum swings. Markets are not scientific. You can't run this stuff through a particle accelerator and experience the same result every time. You just can't do that with markets. They are different beasts, different animals entirely. You cannot compare this PSR to, say, Apple or Tesla or Exxon or any other company. At best, you can probably compare the PSR of the Bitcoin market with the gold market, which we will do. Remember, that's 50x. Interestingly, the all-time average of the Bitcoin PSR is 50, and the trend line has hit 50, and the PSR itself was down in recent months to a 1 sigma down, outside of 2/3 of the time, outside of 67% of observations. It was bouncing along there kind of as support. Has it reversed? Has it reversed? Is a rising PSR, as it always has been in the past, is that going to signal a rising Bitcoin price again in the near future and midterm future? It seems that way for now. Never financial advice. But of course, it could be a fake out. We could go down again. We could hit 2 sigma down again. It's something to keep an eye on. So I hope that this video helps you understand a little bit more about this interesting ratio. I will certainly keep tracking it for you. And thanks for watching.